Welcome to my bewitching podcast, where I take you on a journey to initiate you into the mysteries and pleasures of all things magical and more. I'm Julie Nelson, Rich Witch, botanical perfumer, astrologer, and creator of the Fragrant Oracle. I'll discuss a myriad of topics passionately on women rising unapologetically, witchcraft, including spells, rituals, insightful astrology updates, and oracle card readings. I'll also introduce you to special guests who share their bountiful knowledge and experience in the art of witchcraft, the intuitive and healing arts, and being wildly unapologetic. Are you ready to enhance your sexy, sassy self? Feel more confident with your divination rituals? Or perhaps you desire to call in a lover, receive more money, a new job, or attract more clients? Allow me to introduce this divine, provocative, spirited, scented goddess, Cinnamon. I am a potent money and good fortune manifestor. My warm, sassy scent is perfect to use in love spells and potion. Perhaps you're ready to celebrate a great achievement. Whatever it is, I am swift with my manifesting, for I am a very powerful seductress. Use me if you feel the urge to protect yourself from negative energies. It only takes a drop of my divine essence at your front and back doors to assist with protecting you. I am powerfully enchanting and passionate with my magical workings. Work with these affirmations in synergy, with gently inhaling my beautiful scent to raise your vibration and activate your luscious, desirable essence. I am a powerful manifester. I am revivified. I am sexy, passionate, and a confident woman. I am phenomenal. I attract my heart's desires with ease and flow. Hello and welcome back to the Rich Witch podcast. This is Julie Nelson, your host, and I am here today to introduce you to a beautiful friend of mine, Chantal. And Chantal and I haven't met in person, but we've known each other for many years through business, women's business networks, etc., online, the wonderful world of Facebook. So what I'm going to do, we're going to have some real and raw conversations today on a few topics. I like to call it righteous rage. In fact, that is the series that I'll be weaving into this podcast over its time. So let me introduce you, hand you over to Chantal, and then we'll get talking on some juicy topics around women and how we have been oppressed, suppressed, and how we've allowed it to happen, perhaps. So over to you, Chantal.
Thank you, Julie. Yes. How did we allow this to happen? And you look back over the years, I'm 60 now, and I look back, and on the one hand, I was rebellious for my day. On the other hand, I don't know, something happened and I learned to conform again. So I had these two sides to me in that, and that might be coming up in that. And again, this righteous rage, I didn't realize to what extent I was living with actual rage, not just anger, and that it needed to come out of my body I need to clear it out of my body to come back into my body in a different way. So I now love to work with women and support women. I have been doing it for 30 years in different ways. I call myself now a holistic counselor and also a holistic business counselor, because I want to support women holistically to learn to understand, to be unabashedly, unashamedly themselves.
That is me. And this is why I love talking with you, because it is about being no shame, unapologetic, unabashed. Can't speak it, but it doesn't matter.
I'll do it unashamedly. See? Unashamedly.
Oh, how funny. We know what we mean.
We do.
So you were writing this morning and we were talking about that, and you had some juicy pieces in there. So I thought that we could talk about them.
Actually, sorry, go on.
No, I'm done.
No, it was really interesting because I look back, and when you think that you're not conforming, but this is something you're just saying then, we think we're not, we are being unabashedly ourselves and all that. In fact, I didn't realize I wasn't. I thought I was. It was still actually very much a concept. It's taken me years to allow that to actually drop into actual being, actually in my body. And this is then the topic of my memoir that I'm writing, and these are the themes that I was looking for. So it was quite perfect this morning. What do I write about? Like, what themes do I want to bring in? Because I want to talk about, as openly and speaking the unspoken, is about how it was to live with an alcoholic parent, and how it was like to live with a narcissistic parent, and then how that actually dictated my life in so many ways, and talk about things that we still don't want to know. People don't want to know. We touch on it. Yes, we might say, I realized I was still saying, I was still being very polite. I was still being very much the good girl. I was still being very right, very much doing it the right way. But I wanted to also do it in a way that was right for me, but I still want to honor where my parents were, because they were a product of their own history.
Yes. And I think that's something that is very important to acknowledge, and also that we have to take responsibility for who we are and how we are today, because especially as we get into our more mature years, or once we've become a mother, or once we have our own business, whatever it may be that we're doing, there's something that I learned actually a few decades ago, that what goes on in my life, I can't blame what happened to me as a child. From, it's in the beginning, yes, it affected me badly, and it took me a long time to get over it. However, I knew I couldn't spend the rest of my life using that as an excuse for not being the true person that I desired to be. And it was unfair.
Yeah, but Julia, people can still do that. They go through that. And I do wonder if that's your life's journey, or whether it was your karma, or whatever way you want to use it. Because I agree with you. I was taught years ago by a fabulous therapist at the time, you can keep blaming, you remain the victim. The person or that situation, you're accountable versus responsibility. And that's what I've been doing for years, is unpacking the victimhood to be responsible, to now just go, you know what, I'm now creating my life.
Yes. And it's not about not acknowledging it, because for women, we're talking about women, so women that are bullied at school. I was bullied at school, sexually abused. I was sexually abused. Whatever it may be, it's really, really important to acknowledge that and accept that it happens. This is going to bring me on to something else, but we won't go down that track yet, because I no longer believe in forgiveness. I believe that it's important to acknowledge and accept so that we can move on to heal, because forgiveness didn't work for me personally. Yet I used to preach that at one point, because I thought I had forgiven. That's
And
the difference.
it is. And not only that, you thought you had to do it because that's what we are told. Again,
Mm-hmm.
we are told to do certain things. Of course, what we do, oh, I'm meant to forgive. I'm meant to do this. I'm meant to do that. Why? And then,
Yeah.
of course, we take that part of us into all aspects of our lives, our careers, our businesses, whichever way we do this. And it was interesting you're talking about, we were talking about this, about being responsible. I was sharing with my partner, we were talking about it the other day, about the car accident I had, which actually triggered me completely 14 and a half years ago. It was just, everything came together in that moment that it upended my whole life. But I only just realized now I was never angry with the young man that went into the back of me that caused this. What I realized was I was angry and upset about what the accident did to me. So he caused the accident, yes,
Mm.
but he
Mm.
did not cause my reaction to the accident,
Mm.
because it actually wasn't his fault. He was the trigger, or it was a young man, unfortunately,
Yes.
So that, what happened, so him going into the ramming into the back of me, unleashed, it was obviously meant to happen, which sometimes I don't always like saying, because it's like,
Yeah.
don't tell me when you're in the middle of it, I have a lesson to learn, because I would have punched your lights out and told you to fuck off. And had righteous rage, which is what we're going to be talking about, is rage,
Yes.
because I didn't need to hear all those platitudes. All I know is that it sent me on a trajectory that I never, ever expected. However, 14 and a half years later, I can go, wow, wow. That all had to come. It's easy to say, wow, now. Let me tell you, it took me a
We
long, long time to be able to do this.
Yes, we
And
can
to,
always do it in hindsight. And I want to, sorry, I don't mean to interrupt you, because I want you to keep carrying on with that. So hold the thought is, with somebody like that, it's not an intentional thing. So for me, I could forgive them. I just wanted to say that, because there's a very big difference between an intentional act and an accident.
actually, I really like that, because it was an accident. And in fact, I was more angry with the guy who'd pulled out in front of me, because he wanted to get one car in front of me just to stop, to then go right. Because if he hadn't been there, so these are, of course, the scenarios that go, if he hadn't been there, would have the guy gone into me? If he hadn't moved when he did, I would have been slammed. My legs might have been stuck. So, it's learning how not to go into that, stay in that. But it's also part of the healing, was part of understanding, because we do catastrophize, we do dramatize, particularly when you've been brought up in a family. And we were talking about this before we started. I was born into an adrenaline pump. I had a constant adrenaline pump in my body from the day I was conceived, because living in a violent home, there was constant anxiety, fear, violence. So I had cortisol, going through my body, like looking back now. And also looking back now, is constantly seeking adventure, seeking to have that fix. I didn't realize
Yes.
until I really needed this fix, because from my father was French. I was born in Perth, Australia. Mum was Australian. And from the day basically they got married, I had to have me fairly quick, because from 3 months old, I was taken on my first trip back to France to be married. So I've always traveled all my
Yeah.
life. Then we lived abroad in two different languages. So I had this constant, I had unsafety at home, unsafety in the world, but I had this constant adrenaline pump, because I never knew how to just go,
Yeah.
and stop and breathe and just do ordinary things and feel safe doing ordinary things. And so, of course, I took that into my life, into my relationships, into my businesses. And now it's like, my life is so simple at the moment, Julie. I'm really loving baking, cooking, starting to create art. My business now fits into my life, my way.
This is so important. And I used to have what you have right now. I used to experience that. And when we had the family around, living in the country, living off the grid, baking, stocking up the cupboards with pickles and jams and sauces, and baking fresh bread. And I love it, and I still love it. However, I'm on my own now, and I tend not to do it so much. And there's times when I think, I'm going to get up and I'm going to bake some biscuits, or I'm going to bake a cake, or I'd love to make a sauce, and I don't do it. And I know that a lot of that is part of what I have been traumatized by just in the last 2 years. And I bury myself in my business because it brings me so much joy. And you brought up about you do business your way, and that's a good topic for us to speak about as well, because we've spoken about this where it's like, who says we have to put out a fucking newsletter every week? Who says we have to go live? And who says we have to do this and do that? And you've got to not swear like a trooper like I do, or fake it till you make it, and all of this crap that I really dislike. And it's, let's be authentic, let's be real, because I'm seeing so much disconnect. There's so many, it's like this nucleus, isn't it? We're the nucleus, and there's all these different paths with our personal life, our at home, social, business, being involved with other businesses, and then the disconnect, and people not even being who they are.
No, that's exactly right.
They're not being true to themselves, to anybody else.
And actually, most of us actually don't know how. I didn't realize I didn't know how. So on the one hand, even though I was out there and adventurous and rebelling against I didn't get married, and I didn't want to get married, but I wanted children. I was never going to take the man's name. Now, if you think about it, all those years ago, that was going, and against my father's French background, my mother being, 4 brothers, that was, she did rebel, but she lost sight of that too. You just didn't do that. My French grandmother was so upset when I was 18 and I wasn't a secretary, getting married, having a child. Why would I do that? I wanted to go to university. I wanted to get out there. So I did. And interestingly enough, and I haven't shared this before, is that my father always threatened me. This is part of the control and the conforming and the manipulation, that coerciveness, that if I ever left, because we're living in England at that time, and came back to Australia, he'd cut me off. Well, he'd cut me out of the wheel. He'd cut me off. I was 20 at the time. Guess what I did? I thought, fuck you.
Yep.
I'm off. Yep. And in fact, my father, and I went on the dole. Oh my God, heaven forbid, because the way I was brought up, you don't go on the dole, do anything like that. But a wonderful uncle of mine who'd made a lot of money said, I pay enough taxes. So you go and think about it that I'm actually paying you. I love that. And then I did go and get I went to university. I did go to university and I got part-time jobs. But you know what? My father then helped out. So you see?
Yeah. And you stood your ground. You stood, like, I've never been one to want to get married. I've had long-term relationships. I am not a traditional person. I've never had a desire to be. When I was something like 8 years old, I said to my mum, or mummy then, I'm not going to get married, but I'm going to have babies. And you know what? She'd always say, okay, Julie, that's fine, whatever you want to do. And so I was blessed that I had a mother that didn't push all the traditional stuff like that on us. And marriage to me is just a bit of paper, and it's not dishonoring anybody that chooses to get married, because it's our right to do what we want to do. I don't judge somebody because they want to get married in the traditional way. It's just that I will do what I feel is right for me, not what is right for everybody else.
But, and on that point, I'm actually going to do a little challenge here too, because that's being a counselor, not just to you. But I really would like women to sit, particularly if they're not married yet, or even if they're married, did you really want to get married? Again, really deep down, because when I started sharing that I'd been a woman without children, it was circumstance, and I started talking about what it was felt like. I had quite a few women come through saying, look, I love my children, but if I had my time again, I wouldn't have had them. But I felt it was part of, you get married, you have the house. Because you look at all the ads, it's pronatalist. You look at all the ads, it's all about the nucleus, the family, the dog, the house. And there's you going, okay, where do I fit in? I don't, So, it's just interesting you say that. We're talking about this. And I think coming back to some of the emotions that I brought up, and I now realize that car accident, again, threw everything in. I came up with crippling doubt, perfectionism. See, I took all this into my business because I didn't feel safe. So like we were talking about earlier, I went back to that young child that listened to authority. I was no longer discerning. I no longer was able to trust this young woman who had just gone out into the world, and I just traveled because I'd lived in the different countries and I spoke the different languages. Oh, you want to invite me down to Cannes next week? I can do that. Oh, you want me to go and do this? I can do that. So I just did that. Then suddenly I was on a couch, not being able to get off it. And then this trajectory started, that I went into all of this listening, and I didn't realize part of trauma is that you are constantly driven. So this is coming back to the adrenaline pump that I was talking to you about, that I needed this constant fix and I didn't get it. And I didn't understand until only last few years, and that's why I want to be, is how that was affecting my business. So even though I was working with a fabulous psychologist and counselor, at that point I was so busy being in my personal life, just trying to survive and get out of bed each day. I was trying to keep myself completely separate. My business and that was separate. Let me tell you, it doesn't work. So don't try. Can I please tell anyone now?
I agree. I agree that
you
you
just can't.
Well, people do separate, but it doesn't work. And I think it makes you sick because you're not honoring your true self and your true desires. Where I struggled was at school, and I wasn't a child that got into trouble. I was always the good student, but I felt I did have a couple of teachers that were bullies. One was a man, and he just didn't like the girls. He really favored the boys in class, and he was a bit of a bully. And it was really interesting because my mum stood up for me, and he was made to apologize to me. And I was in what we called intermediate. So I was in, look, it doesn't matter. It's before you go to college. So our schooling in New Zealand was very different. You had primary, standard, intermediate, then you went to high school. Anyway, it was really good, but it affected me a lot because he seemed to enjoy punning the girls. He was very sports orientated as well. So I think my experience with him, and he wasn't the only teacher that had an effect on my life in a negative way. One was from I was about 7, but part of them, because my mum stood up for me, then that gave me the strength. It wasn't like just put up with it. It was like that hell hath no fury like a mother's scorn. Don't fuck with my children. And by the way, my mother never swore and she never drank.
So my mum's the same. And it's interesting you say that, because mum did her best to do that for me, but dad was too powerful, too violent, too strong. So she did it in one way, but not in another. So I never felt I had that support. So it's taken me a long time to know that universe has my back, or my spirit guides. I have my own back now because I feel safe and trust myself. So again, I think coming back to this, when you don't have that and you want to really do something, be an adventure, run a business, you get caught on that treadmill again. See, I got caught on that treadmill, and I'm just looking at the words that I'd written. I just churned things out because I wasn't connected. You told me to do that, I'll do that. You tell me to do that, I'll do that. I had no discernment. Is that what I want to do? Is how you did things. I conformed. So how on earth I ran a business, my massage business and aromatherapy, before this all happened? I have no idea, but I lost sight of the fact that I'd actually been very successful at that without all this, you have to do it a certain way. I look back now and laugh. I laugh at myself and go, wow, but it's actually not laughable, because that's also what trauma does. And as women, we are taught to conform, right? So again, what I realized is I did think out of obligation. I moved at a breathless no breath, but look at what I've achieved. So I'd go, look at what I've achieved on a sales page and a blog, and I've done this and I've done that, and I've been productive, yet
Yes.
that productiveness wasn't getting me anywhere.
Yes, I hear you, I see you, I really do. And it's just some of the words that you've used. I was going back reminiscing as, I was listening to you thinking, well, when I left school just before I turned 15, because school were the worst years of my life. And my headmistress, we had a female principal, And the reason I left just before I turned 15 was I turned 15 on the weekend, and I wasn't going to go back on a Monday just to leave. So, because I hated school that much. And so I remember leaving on the Friday, went in, gave her a letter from my mum, whatever we had to do. Went to hand in my books, and I remember her calling me in and sitting me down and saying, "You will never amount to anything without an education." And it was like, wow. And I'm really grateful that I actually did not give a fuck about what she said, because she had no idea of the bullying and the trauma that I was experiencing. Anyway, so I went home, and I was telling my mum, and she rang the school up straight away to speak to the headmistress. And she was always, my mum wasn't aggressive at all. And she just said, you know, because I was number 6 of 7 children, she said, all of my children have left school at that age, and they all are doing very well, because that was very common in New Zealand in those days. And I was flatting, working and supporting myself at the age of 15 and 16, and I'd taken an apprenticeship in fashion design. So we just got out there and did it, but I partied until I fell pregnant. So I had quite a free, enjoyable life. I left New Zealand at the age of 17 and a half and came to live in Australia by myself. I had one sister living here. So very different. And it was when I hit my 30s and had a child that, I mean, life became very, very different for me. And then, honestly, when I turned 60, it was like a switch turned on. It was like, bing, like, oh my God, is this what life is about? This is fucking awesome.
Yep.
The empowerment and the not giving a fuck.
You know, and it's interesting you say that, because I turned 66 months ago. And exactly, it's like it. And having not spoken to anyone about this, I said the same as you. It is like something, a bing, a light's gone off or something's gone off, you know. And because, and something you were saying a bit before, like when we're churning this stuff out, and this is again why I want to talk about trauma being brought into business and us not understanding. Because I think so many of us don't realize that we are filling an emptiness within us. We are filling a void. And it can become, then you have all the different addictions. Now, I wasn't addicted to substances. Thank goodness my body couldn't do that. But I had other addictions. It was about being busy, about needing acknowledgement. That was the way I filled my void. You know, I had not one moment to myself. So even though I talk about my sacred space and my sacred pause, it was a concept for a long, long time. Until I really dropped into it. And now I understand that a lot more, you know. So again, I think we need to look at how does it affect all areas of our lives. And then coming back to the you know, these deep emotions. See, you take, or we take, so one takes like the crippling doubt in there. We take the people pleasing in there. We take that, the jealousy in there. We look at others, they're doing well, we are not. So that brings in the victimhood, but how we don't say that. Like, coming back to what you were saying earlier about where anger came in, I had and still have, so I'm working through it, an anger towards coaches, you know. And this is about why I want to do the work that I'm doing as well, is how can we become, again, where does this responsibility lie, traumatized, oh, I've just gone completely blank what I was going to say. To understand, that's right, I sold my soul to them, I gave my money to them, and then I got nowhere because I didn't realize that I was trying to live their dream. It was their success, their dream. And I was left out in the nowhere. But then it comes back to, I kept people pleasing. How much higher can I jump? How much more can I do? But then this rage came. Then this rage came up. Who has responsibility? You know, who's at fault here? So all these things, where can I lay the blame? Because for a while there, I wanted to lay the blame on everyone else, you know, which is part of the process.
It is. And if I can interject again, like, I know I've spent thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars on business coaches that got me nowhere, that made a lot of promises. And I was just so in awe of them because they were so amazing, and they convinced me that I could be like them too. And how many people in business is this still happening to? And the other thing is I mean, this is a bit different and perhaps another conversation, but I'll tell you what, these people online that just come and want to friend you and then immediately spam you with trying to sell, like, and what happened to the know, like, trust, being present and connecting with people. And now, I mean, I've had a couple of good coaches that really have helped me. However, there is a point where it is taking responsibility for yourself. However, also you were hooked in, or when I say you, we, because we were naive and we believed that we needed all of these things that they were saying, whereas we should have just gone in the beginning as if it was a job. Do you know what I mean? And done it that way, which is what I do now. It's like, fuck off, like, because I was doing 10-hour days in my business and not living a life, and I was addicted to it.
And this is exactly it. It does not work, because again, we're being out there. Again, we are listening to their story. If you don't pay thousands of dollars, well, then you don't see yourself as well.
You'll never make it.
You'll never make it. You'll never make it like I have, and the few percentage of my clients I have, because really, how many of their clients have really made it? So then you're trained to go and put out this wonderful site. I finally had a 5,000K month or a 10,000K month. Really? One, perhaps. So again, this is this look at me. Again, where does this ego start? And again, is this from my upbringing where, false ego, false modesty? I don't know. So again, it's just talking about these things, because so many of us, when we are vulnerable and when we are at the depths of struggling in our lives, we actually get hooked into this.
Yeah.
So what I do is when I work with...
We're desperate.
Yeah, we're desperate.
Exactly.
Exactly. And I'm sitting there going, how can I be so desperate? So I'm having to learn to forgive. This, we talked about it, but forgive in the sense of just have compassion with myself, because I can't understand, or I'm getting there. How did I lose it? This is why I've learned a lot about trauma through my psychologist, and then the counseling, and through doing mental health, awareness things, to understand how did I get there, so I can then support other women. Because so many of us, and I've seen this, we need a coach. Don't think of needing a counselor. You've got to be kidding. And particularly here in Australia, counseling is very different to the States and countries, And I look at it and go, well, you might need a marketing coach, a visibility coach, or this coach. But if you don't believe it, if you don't feel it within your body that you can be visible, you can go and have as many spiritual readings, tarot readings. Rest assured, I've done this. So, I'm not saying anything.
We all have, and it doesn't work.
It does not work because it's external.
Yes, it's
all external.
Come from within. We've got to heal those inner wounds. We have to come out from the inside. And
that's right.
I often refer to self-love, and I remember a time when people will say, you'll learn to find yourself, you'll learn to love yourself. And we mentioned this before, I have no idea what that meant. I was a teenager, a late teenager, and it's like, how do you do that? What do you have to do? Is that even going to happen to me? Because I didn't understand it. And, I'm talking about 16, 17, 18. And honestly, every decade that I've been through, I've grown and learned. And even with all the mistakes and the awful things that have happened, I've learned that I have a choice. We have a choice. We can choose to learn and grab the opportunities, or we can stay back. We can choose to be the victim. And I am in that place, and I have been for about 20 years now, where I will always choose to move forward. Now, it doesn't mean to say that everything's been perfect. I think when I hit 60 was the best. This has been the best decade. It's also in the last couple of years been incredibly traumatizing for me. I've been in counseling for a few months, which has really helped me sometimes I go there and I'm crying, and then my counselor will say something and it will trigger something in me, and I get an idea, and then I end up going on a rant, and she's, smiling at me, and I end up laughing because it's a process. And that's where my Righteous Rage series has come from. It's like, because she said to me, Julie, you have righteous rage. And I went, oh my God, I love that. We're going to podcast on this.
Exactly right. And I think it is about, I had so many thoughts going through as I was listening to you, and I've forgotten every one of them. But coming back to this self-love thing, I think also we romanticize what love means. Like we romanticize what a family means. We romanticize what it means to be successful. So we romanticize, because like you, I didn't know what love meant. Could be kidding me. What is self-acceptance? These are all just words and concepts.
Yes.
But I found, as I've been like you going along the path, love is, for me, is just, it's just it's acceptance. It's being able to just be with yourself fully and totally, with the good, bad, and the ugly in every single way, and not constantly dropping into another topic. I was thinking, not dropping into shame all the time.
Yes. Yes.
I'm a bad person. There's something wrong with me. I'm not lovable. It's just, here I am. And, I'm experiencing this. This is just, how can I work through?
So this is where, and I absolutely agree, I think acknowledgement, acceptance, and I am going to say self-love, because I can say I love myself, and which I never used to be able to. But I do agree with you that what is it? It's accepting ourselves for who we are, and knowing that we are beautiful beings. And I have this little formula that I quite like, because I know love and self-love has been done to death. But I think that when we get to that point of that self-acceptance, then it builds our self-worth. It builds our self-confidence. That in turn helps us to become more magnetic, which then helps us to.
Yeah.
So it's a journey, it's a pathway, it's a formula that we ourselves have to do. Nobody can do that for us.
Yes.
And
yes.
It is acknowledgement and acceptance. And yes, not feeling shame. So when I want to come back to this again, because I said I don't believe in forgiveness. When I said that, I'm talking about when somebody intentionally harms you. However, I think it's important to forgive ourselves for any mistakes that we make. I think mistakes are very important because, again, we have that choice to grow from them. And so they're powerful. Imagine if we never made any mistakes, what would we be?
Dull.
Yeah.
Desensitized.
Yes. So they're important.
They are.
And a book that I read many years ago, I've mentioned this a couple of times in the podcast, but it really did have a great effect on me. It helped me to turn a corner, was that no matter what decisions we make, we always have the opportunity to learn and grow. So therefore, that in a way is not a mistake.
That's right. It isn't. But I think again, and I think coming back to this choice, you can make a choice, no choice. No choice is also a choice. And this is what I had to learn.
Absolutely.
And if you don't want to do something, you are actually making a choice. You are making a choice to remain, whether it be stuck or in that place, whatever it might be, and it's the word I'm sort of not, it's an outrageous act of courage to make a choice. It's an outrageous act. I just read something about this just again this morning.
It's an outrageous choice.
Exactly right. So it's like having righteous anger. We have an outrageous choice, or it's an act of courage, and because it is outrageous, we don't realize when we're in it. Someone says to you, oh my God, look what you've done. You think, oh, really? Because it's become part of you. But it's for some people, or in that moment in time, so if you're coming from that place of vulnerability, fear, shame, that depths of you are so not good enough to be in this world and not meant to breathe. Sometimes it is an outrageous act. It feels, I never understood what rebellion mean. Now I get it. I'm rebelling against everything I'm meant to know in life more than ever, to come back to going, you know what, I love doing these womanly, and I'm going to say in inverted commas, baking, and why not? Why do we have to
Absolutely.
shun being the woman that we can have everything, be out there, be a career, and be that? If you want to be that, so here I am, as you said, like 60, and I had a vision. I told because my partner's older than me, we had a bit of a giggle that when I'm on my own, I might be that the spinster, living somewhere in the woods, baking cakes with cats all around me or something.
That's me, where I always say I want to live in a cottage in the woods and have my animals, like I've got 5 unicorns, have them grazing around the cottage, and I've got my cats and I've got a dog, and and it's such a delight, and I see myself as that wise witchy woman, and picking
Yes,
food from the garden, because I used to live off the grid
yes,
and do all of that, and it's so
yes.
precious. So
And it's
I totally, absolutely get that.
And who would have thought? Because when I look back on my life, because it was so go, 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 and living abroad, and as what I call here the cafe latte, I was the cafe latte set. This is how I used to live, because I lived in London, Zurich, all over the
Yes.
place. And who would have thought? And I'm sitting here thinking, I loved, the Chanel clothes, so I'm giving you just a bit of a Louis Vuitton, all this sort of stuff, because
Yes,
that was
yes,
how I
yes.
lived, and I was very whatever, loved going down the roads of Paris and things like that. Now I love having my walking boots on.
Yes, yes, yes. It's the same. I can still go out and get dressed in what
Yes.
designer clothes I have left. That's it.
That's right, exactly right. What you have
But
left. And he said it's so freeing.
yeah, and then I'm in the paddock with my horses with muddy gumboots and old trackies. And I got up today and I had dry grass because I was lying down on the ground with them. And one of them tried to eat my hair. And it's just like, and I think it's great. It's a great balance. And I think we value these things more. When I was younger, I mean, I was a party girl. I loved to go out and dance my heart off. I dance all night, and I still do love to do that. So, and yeah, doing things our way. Oh,
And
Frank Sinatra just popped into my head then. Do it my way.
yes, I love it. And the other thing I was just thinking of as well, it's allowing yourself to feel rage. If someone does something, it doesn't mean you have to go and actually let them know, depending on the situation or whatever.
It's
But
good to,
allowing that anger to come, to be really pissed off. I'm really pissed off with what that person said, did. It's what I do with that, and sometimes you might need to go back and say something to them, because that bound, whatever you want to do. But I allow myself, if someone pisses me off, I'm pissed. And if I decide
yes,
now, and this is what happens, switch goes on at 60, I don't want them in my life anymore, because I would allow people, ironically, to push me to a point where in the end I'd lash out. That'd be the scorpion
that's,
tail would turn. And then I'd be called the bitch, because I thought it was obvious that I was actually annoyed, but clearly it wasn't.
you
Again,
know
I
what?
laugh.
That was me too. And what I would do is just cut them off. It's just like,
Yes,
no,
me
I'm
too.
done. I'm done. And
Yeah.
because they didn't see or appreciate that I gave. However, I enabled it, but
Mm-hmm.
I didn't see that. And a
Exactly.
few years ago, I did this ritual. I've told many of my community and friends this. And I did this ritual to release and let go of most of my friends. And it wasn't that I rang them up and said, I don't want to see you anymore. I don't want to be your friend anymore. It was just I did this ritual because we weren't aligned. And of course, my doors have always been open to them. And every now and then they pop in and pop out. However, it was like, just because I've known them for 30 years doesn't mean to say that we have to be friends, as in close friends, because we don't even have conversations like I didn't want to stay in the work. I wanted to grow. So what I found was they were at spot 5 and I was moving up and up and up. And I don't mean up and up and up in life. I just meant my own personal growth I was
Yeah.
continuing to evolve. And I just people would laugh and try and take you down, and because you were doing things differently. And I just thought, I don't need that shit in my life anymore. And I don't regret it. I did it with love, and it was a really interesting process. And I think also with what you were saying about feeling the anger, feeling that it's not acceptable, feeling that it's not okay. And yeah, it's definitely okay to be angry as long as you don't go try and harm, you don't go out there to intentionally harm someone. It's not about that. It's about acknowledging your feelings so that you actually can process them and then release them.
That's exactly right. And I'm only just recently doing when I'm letting go of people in my life. So in a way, the pandemic was brilliant for me. It made me step into the unknown and really look at who do I want, not blah, blah, blah.
Yes.
And so first time now I can actually do it without guilt or without thinking it's my loss, not theirs. I never understood that when my partner used to say to me, it's their loss, not yours. I'm like, no, but it's my loss. I want them in my life. I didn't get that. Whereas now I go, you know what? I'm done.
It's okay, yeah. And
It's okay, in the old times I would have gone, I'm done. Then I go, oh, I'll just have a coffee with them. Perhaps it wasn't that bad. Now it's just like, I'm done and it's okay.
yeah,
I no longer
and
have the guilt.
yes, it's okay to say no.
It's
It's
okay.
not about being bitchy. It's not about being
No,
mean or horrible. It's simply moving away from it with
that's it.
grace and
Exactly
honoring
right.
ourselves and respecting ourselves. And that way we're respecting them as well.
Exactly right. Exactly right. Yeah, exactly. Oh, I just love this. And the other thing before we sort of I read recently again a beautiful was by Sharon Blackie in the book Haggitude.
Oh my
And
God.
isn't
I'm
that
hooked on her books.
so am I? And the Women Rose Rooted. Oh my God, I've got notes and notes and notes and notes. But she wrote somewhere which was beautiful. When you're younger, you have ambition, then you transition to aspiration. Because I realize now, I still want my business or healing practice to do well. Of course I do.
Me too.
But I aspire to it now. It's no longer an ambition. It's no longer driving. I'm allowing it to come to me. My healing practice now fitting into my life. And
Yes.
yes, is it stressful financially? A little bit at this point in time.
Okay.
Absolutely. But it's like I have to overcome that fear of
Mhm.
lack, not having
Yes.
enough, because now I can go through, I'm a lot more aware, like again, clients, no longer people pleasing, no longer try, oh yes, I'll do anything for you. I'll reduce my prices. I'll do this. I'll do that. I'll give you a
Yes.
freebie, anything for you to come and, please, please, please. Oh my God. I look back now it's like, no,
Yep.
no,
I love it. I love it. And that's a very important message to people is that do it your way, because I was that people pleaser. I had a coach and she was so correct. This was about 11 years ago. And she said, Julie, and she was really lovely. I only had her for a short time. That was what I could afford at that time. And as I said, I have had a couple of good coaches, but I've had a lot of patriarchal, masculine bullshit way of doing things in business as well, where I paid thousands of dollars for. But what she said to me, and this is so important because so many women are givers. So, and you see somebody in pain, and I'm not a rescuer. However, I used to give away things because I thought I can do that, but it wasn't
exactly.
actually honoring myself. And she said to me,
Exactly.
Julie, you have a beautiful business, you have a beautiful heart, but honestly, she said, you're attracting leeches.
Yes.
I went,
That's
oh, she said, you've attracted people that want what you have for nothing or very little, and you're worth so much more. And that was a big turning point for me. And
yeah.
so I've gotten better and better and better with my boundaries and
And we
just,
no longer sorry.
no, that's
So no going boundaries, but also I realized I no longer need it's justification. I justify it all. Why I did this, why I did it, rather than just saying, actually, no, 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 it's okay.
yeah, yeah.
Oh my God. So thank you. Yes. And the other thing I'm finding too, so it's
No,
that
no.
sense of I'm realizing I need the balance of both the masculine and the feminine or the yin, whichever way you want to call it. So I need structure, but I needed to
Yes.
create my own structure.
Your
So I
own,
needed
that's it.
goals. Instead of goals, it's intentions. So I still need that because it needs to somewhere to land, to hold. And then
Mhm.
you have the feminine, which is the flow and that. Now I read somewhere someone wrote beautifully. In fact, it's the feminine that holds the masculine.
Oh,
rather than the
absolutely.
masculine. So it took me, I didn't get that. Suddenly went, oh my God, yes, it is. And again, that was a sense of freedom. So being in flow, intuition, spirituality, righteous rage or righteous emotions, it's all part of it.
And outrageous courage
Yes,
and
yes,
boldness. I mean, these are all
yes.
beautiful things that we can use as affirmations. And I've just had a thought before we wind up, because Chantal, we can come back and talk about a lot of these things over the times. And it's like, I am allowed to have righteous rage. It is okay for me to be in righteous rage. I love being outrageously bold and, saying these beautiful, empowering intentions, and then bringing in the power of essential oils. So
Oh,
let's
yes.
just have a little play, because Chantal is a sister aromatherapy aromatherapist like myself. So we have I love that outrageous confidence. So I am outrageously confident, and the first two oils that pop into my mind are basil and black pepper, the warrior
Mm.
women. What would you add to that?
I don't know what pops in Rose.
Well, I love that, because you know why? Rose is all about receiving and love is the highest vibration. And I know, like when we're talking about love, we're not talking about that romanticism of love. We're talking about, our heart center. So that's a beautiful blend: basil, black pepper, and rose. Let's do one more. What's another intention that we can put out there? This is one. Go ahead. You go. You were going to
I'm
say.
thinking I love bergamot. So what can we do with bergamot? So let's create something with bergamot, because that's light and uplifting and joyful,
It
and
is. It's
brings in the
fun. It's
sunshine.
spontaneous. Think of
Yes.
Sagittarian star sign for bergamot. So that is like, I love to be spontaneous. I love to be dancing in the forest with all the fae folk. What have you?
Exactly. And in the rain. So I did that this morning. And you know what I'm loving hearing that people can't see, it's because of podcast. If anyone could see us, by the way, anyone who's listening, we are, hands are going everywhere. Our
We're like
faces are doing,
dancing on our
we're
seats.
dancing around here like unicorns, literally, like the wise women,
Well,
cackling away.
absolutely, it's awesome. Well, we'll do a video for YouTube on these sorts of things. We can do it on essential oils, and then bring in
Yes. Yes.
astrology and your healing modalities. And my arms are still waving around because it's expressive, and I love audio, because you can be in your daggiest of dags, but you can't see what we're doing, and it's quite funny, like we're acting on stage.
That's right. But what I love, now that I understand this one, I've cleared a lot of my shit out. You feel the vibration. So the vibration comes through. Because it took me a long
Yes,
time to understand, because I was brought up traditional. Of course, we didn't have all Zoom and internet and that. I didn't know whether I could work with energy online. Of course you can, but it took me a
of
long
course you
time to,
can.
because I was traditional. I was brought up, this way. So the vibration, this is what I love, the vibration will come. Because
It
again, if
will.
you're in someone else's vibration in your business, you're not in your own. Then you wonder why you're not attracting what you want.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I mean, the tone of our voice and how we're speaking, that all creates the energy, doesn't it? Our words are our
Mm,
wand.
mm. And we're allowed to, if we are there, and we're allowed to be loud now. We no longer have to conform, seen and not heard. Just be the good girl, sit in your corner. We don't have to do that anymore.
No, we don't. Far out. No, this has been fun. Thank you, my beautiful friend. I look forward to us connecting and recording more, whether it be on your YouTube or my
Yes.
podcast, or doing lives on social media, wherever it may be. For anybody that would like to connect in with Chantal, I will have all of her details in the show notes below. And of course, you know where you can connect in with me. If you have any questions, please share in the comments. If you don't like us, tough titties, And it's like we're
But
not
still be
feeling.
kind. But still be kind.
We'll still be, yes, still be kind, and it's okay. You know, we can't please everybody, can
No,
we?
no, no.
Not at all. But we wish you all love. We wish you all
Absolutely. Love and freedom. Love and freedom.
love, yes, and bliss and magic and all of those divine, luscious things. Thank you for being here to our listeners. Thank you for being here with me and sharing this time. I'm just feeling so good, and I've got a smile from ear to ear, and so is Chantal. And that was fun. These are real and raw conversations that are absolutely awesome and necessary. And we're not afraid to speak our truth. So join us and rise unapologetically and love yourself unapologetically in your truth. Any last words, Chantal?
I was just thinking my tagline or something that I found I loved. She who feels confident feels free. So if you
Oh,
can
I
bring
like
that
that.
in. So when you feel confident, you feel free.
And that is it. I love it. That's a good one. And you can use those oils like basil, bergamot, black pepper, rose. They're all, oh, there's so many. All right, my loves, I'm going to say goodbye, and we will be back soon. Thank you for joining us on the enchanting journey through the realms of magic, mystique, and self-discovery. I hope you enjoyed our time together on the Rich Witch podcast, where we delve into the depths of witchcraft, astrology, and the unapologetic rise of women. Please subscribe, rate, and leave a review. And as we wrap up, I encourage you to carry the wisdom and magic we've shared into your own life. Embrace the power within you and revel in the beauty of your own unique journey. Stay tuned for more magic, and in the meantime, stay curious and know your magic is a gift to the world. Blessed be, beautiful ones, and remember, the magic is always within you. This is Julie Nelson, signing off.